The Islamic State faction in Syria that beheaded an American journalist is now the target of a criminal investigation in the United States. Jim Foley's murder was recorded on a video released by the terror group. And CCTV's Jessica Stone is following these developments for us. And Jessica, what can you tell us?
Well, we can tell you that that investigation is basically an outgrowth of an existing kidnapping investigation into the disappearance of Jim Foley that began 2 years ago in northern Syria. But we're also learning that there is an international police organization called Interpol that also is calling for a global investigation, one that would specifically target this issue of foreign fighters. And you'll recall that there's a British voice for that masked fighter who appears to have killed Foley in that video that was released just 2 days ago. The current tally of foreign fighters estimated now at about 12,000 in Syria and in Iraq. And as you mentioned, the U.S. Justice Department now moving from the kidnapping investigation into the criminal one. Listen to the Attorney General this morning.
The Justice Department is actively pursuing justice in this case. We have an open criminal investigation. And those who would perpetrate such acts need to understand something. This Justice Department, this Department of Defense, this nation, we have long memories and our reach is very wide. We will not forget what happened, and people will be held accountable one way or the other.
And Elaine, we're also learning a little bit more about some rescue attempts for Jim Foley and other hostages. Just last night, as you know, we learned about a U.S. Navy SEAL or U.S. Special Forces attempt earlier this summer. But we're also learning more about a possible ransom that was on Foley's head. If we show you his pictures, we know that from Foley's employer that about $132 million was asked of his family through an email by the Islamic State in just the past week. And the United States has a policy of not negotiating with terrorists, of not paying ransom, so that was not an option, hence potentially this rescue attempt by those U.S. Special Forces. But European nations do pay ransoms, and in fact, in the last year or so, there have been a number of releases of, for example, French journalists who had been previously held captive by the Islamic State. Foley's employer, or previous employer, the Global Post, now calling for a second look at this issue and also talking about the millions of dollars that it spent trying to find him.
We've had a team of investigators in the field, in the Middle East, in Europe, investigating Jim's whereabouts and the means of securing his freedom. Everything that we ever learned, we provided to the United States government, to the FBI, State Department, and appropriate agencies.
And Elaine, just in the past hour, the U.S. State Department reiterating the ongoing policy of the United States government that it does not pay ransoms. In part, it says, because it doesn't want to fund the efforts of the Islamic State. It calculates that the amount of money that Islamic State has raised alone just in ransoms is in the millions.